Ain't the kind of red tie, but not from 9 to 5. Try their life but say goodbye. Gotta risk my life to get the job done. Sexy work can never be fun. Simply unprofessional. Simply unprofessional. Unprofessional. I'm unprofessional. I'm unprofessional. I'm unprofessional. You know it's true, yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another Simply Unprofessional. I'm your host, Webby. Join me tonight. We got Rob.
Hey, everybody, it's Rob.
And as promised, we have B yet again.
Hello, I am B.
Today we are going to be answering questions. B has reached out on Twitter and got a bunch of people to ask questions. We're just going to go through and answer them. I will answer what I can, and everybody else can answer pretty much everything else.
You sounded so thrilled about that. You're like, I'm going to answer your questions. Ugh.
No, I enjoy answering questions, even though, like, whenever we do these types of podcasts, and like our top 5 favorite things kind of podcasts, like our topics, I always go through and like I'll ask Devin and I'll ask Rob, and if we have a special guest, I'll ask them, and then I always just kind of gloss over my answers. So I'm looking forward to actually answering something.
I'm glad that people asked, because the amount of times in my life back in the day when I used to ask myself questions in videos and pretend that I actually got questions asked to me, it's just that nobody actually ever asked me.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I used to just make them up and ask myself and be like, so somebody called Alex asked me if, and I'm like, yeah, they didn't. I make that up, but it makes me sound like I have friends. So, you know, that's the goal.
That's a good, Rob, make a note of that. It's a good idea.
Good idea. So we did get quite a few questions, and it did tell me how many there were before, and now it doesn't. So we'll just sort of go with it. We'll see how it goes, I guess. I think you want me to start now?
Yeah.
What if I don't want to start now?
Okay, then we can talk about something. How's the weather there?
It's very cool. We had our first below 0 day today, and my car door handles froze shut.
Oh.
Because obviously because I have a Tesla, obviously the handles are flat, aren't they? And you have to push the side of it to make it come out at the side to pull it. It was so cold they froze, so they wouldn't come out. So I had to go on my app on my phone and press the manual door release to make the doors open because I couldn't get in my car. So yeah, that was fun. And my what do you guys call? Do you call it windscreen wash there the same as we do, or do you say something else?
Windshield wash fluid.
Right, yeah, windshield. I forgot you said that because it's shielding you from the wind.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, my windscreen wash froze, and they wouldn't spray out of the car. So, like, that's how cold it was. So, you know, first time that's happened to me. You want to do the questions?
Sure, if you're ready.
Yeah. I mean, I was just distracted by the fact that Webby had a GIF in this chat that I forgot about of a man opening a carton of milk and it just like spraying all over his face.
Ah, yes, that was when we recorded your podcast.
Yeah, and we couldn't talk about the thing that you were making a joke about because it was too inappropriate for my podcast.
Yep.
All right. Question number 1 is not relevant to Webby, but okay. Webby can probably still. I'm sure you can provide some commentary. How did you feel the moment you realized you were a part of the LGBTQ plus community? Terrified.
Yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah, I think when you know there's something going on in your life and there's something about you that's different from everybody else, and you know that, and like when you're around people that particularly aren't LGBT as well, growing up, you tend to have that like feeling that you know something's wrong with you, but you don't know what it is. I think that when you figure it out and you realize, oh, this is what I am. That fits me perfectly. Like that description is exactly what I am. It's like a mix of relief because you understand what's wrong with you, quote, wrong with you. Obviously, it's not actually something wrong with you, but at that time, that's how it feels. It's like a relief of knowing what's wrong with you, and then being terrified of how everybody around you is going to treat you. And how you're going to tell people about it. Because a lot of people say, like, why do people come out? Why don't they just, like, just leave it and just do what you want, live your life, have a boyfriend if you want a boyfriend, have a girlfriend if you want a girlfriend, don't say anything. But, like, it's all right saying that, but then people continue to treat you a certain way and talk to you in certain ways. Like, parents who, like, make jokes, like, oh, you're going to break so many girls' hearts. And you're like, I'm not. Like, oh, I mean, I might, because I'm never going to touch them. That might break their hearts. But, like, I think by not coming out, it makes you feel really repressed, doesn't it? And like you can't be who you are, and you can't not come out if you're trans, obviously, for obvious reasons. You can't just walk home, like I can't leave for school in the morning and come home a woman and just say to my mum, "What of it?" You kind of have to sort of tell her that. But
just be like, look what I learned at school today! Ta-da!
Ta-da! I've got tits. Yeah, I think it's not it's not one of those things that you can just necessarily do, but yeah, it's terrifying. It's terrifying for a long time. It takes a long time too until you're comfortable to come out after you figure it out yourself. And I would say that for me, I was absolutely terrified and didn't tell anybody for years. So I think Rob's experience probably similar.
Yeah, terrified, and also like a lot of the people, including my parents and some of my family, are super conservative, even though they're not very religious. Like my dad would always talk about how gay people, like they're perverts and there's something wrong with them. So then I felt like, okay, well then there's something wrong with me. Like it felt like it made me feel like there was some, like I was wrong. I'm like, what? Like why am I like this? Why? It just like the people talking to you about it when they have those kind of opinions, it makes you feel like there's something like that's bad inside you when that's completely not true. And it took me a long time to realize that. So for a long time I tried just to be straight. Like I didn't tell anybody. I was like, you know what? I'll just they say it's a choice. I'll choose to be straight. It's not a fucking choice, believe me.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's not. You can try as hard as you want, but it won't work.
Yeah, no. So for a long time, I ended up getting married to a woman, and like eventually everything just broke down because I was not straight. I was just pretending, and so eventually everything came out, and then I decided to come out because my marriage was over anyway, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to keep doing this. I need to start telling people, and I have told most of the people except for my father because my mom thinks that he won't speak to me ever again. So I'm just like,
which is awful.
Yeah, just to keep the peace. When I go, that's one of the reasons why I don't like to go home for one thing. Mm-hmm. But I told her, I'm like, if I ever get a boyfriend that wants to come to meet my family, I am not going to hide it. I'm going to bring him. Of course, we'll warn him that it's probably not going to go well. But everybody else in my family knows, and most of my friends know. Well, I should say my immediate family. Like, there are, like, uncles and aunts and stuff that don't know. But everyone, like, my brother, my sisters, my mom.
I always remember, like, that exact feeling that, like, I'm not going to hide it. If I'm going to bring someone home or if I'm going to do something, I'm not going to hide it. And I remember one of my family members being like, yeah, but we don't want it. And I was like, okay, then I will explain to my future partner why I don't talk to you anymore instead. Instead of bringing them to meet you, I'll just let them know why I cut you out of my life. So, I think that people who aren't LGBT always like act like they're the ones being hugely inconvenienced by your identity, as if it's not a constant battle in your own head every single day. They have no idea. So the next question, and this one I think is interesting because I know the answer to this, and a lot of SU listeners will already know the answer to this too, but it's still fun to learn it. What is your worst travel experience?
Webby, what's it?
Worst travel experience? Yeah, going to Indianapolis and having to drive through Pennsylvania. That was horrific.
Mm-hmm. we were freaking delirious by the end because it
Feel
was
free to
took
go
like
look back on
an
the episode
extra
list.
like 8 to 10 hours longer than it should have been, or something like that.
We saw like
Freaking cars on
we
fire.
we saw like 2 cars and an 18-wheeler all on fire. Separate fires, mind you. It's like cars just spontaneously combust on the highways of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and to bypass every exit, you had to like get off the exit, go like way out, and then like angle back, and you were only like a couple miles down the highway, but it was like it took you like an hour to get to somewhere where you could go and get to the next exit to get back on the highway.
That's funny. I don't know if I've necessarily had a negative travel experience. I think like I've had like stressful times, but I don't know if I've had a really negative one. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember we went on vacation, we had to drive, and my parents and my grandparents got completely lost, and we ended up in like the total middle of nowhere. But I don't necessarily remember anything that's like super, super, super bad. I think the worst one for me as a new driver, because I've not been driving very long, was that my city is doing roadworks until 2025 right now. So a bunch of the roads are closed. And they did a marathon run in summer on a Sunday. It was like a big like charity marathon where everybody had to like run around the city. For the sake of the marathon and keeping the pedestrians safe, they closed even more of the roads, like almost all of them. And for whatever reason, I went to pick up my sister because we were going to go out with my family for something. And my sister goes to me, I pick her up, and she walks out the door with her then boyfriend and goes to me, "Do you mind taking him home? He lives in the center of the city." And so I thought, "You're kidding, right?" And she was like, "No, seriously." And so I ended up taking him home. But because I was a new driver and I had to use my GPS, it tried to take me down all the roads that were closed. So obviously I was having to then just go down any road I could that was open. And I got so unbelievably lost in the middle of the city that I've lived in my entire life, and had no idea where I was going, because literally every time it told me to turn down a road, it was closed. So I was that was a moment, I think, where I just felt so believably overwhelmed with stress that I just was ready to have a complete meltdown. And then I accidentally drove in a bus lane and got a fine.
That reminds me of a time when me and my ex-wife were going to pick up our first dog. He was in Maryland, so we had to drive down to Maryland, and there had been like a bad storm, so like there was flooding, and so our GPS kept trying to take us to this road that was closed, and I would just go down a random road to try to get it to like reset, and it would, but it kept taking us in circles again and again and again back to that same road that was closed. I'm like, this is the only way to get through this state. So finally I realized, like after 6 or 7 times of this, I realized that it had a function that said this road is closed, find another route. I was like, oh, thank God.
I wish that cars and like GPS is just knew which were closed, because the amount of times that they try and take you down something, and then like you say, you force yourself to go a different way to get your sat nav, well, your GPS to reroute, and instead it somehow finds another road that takes you right back to the one you were on to begin with. Yep. And you're like, are you kidding me? Do you think I drove 20 minutes in the wrong direction because I wanted to go back to this road? It's so annoying. But so that my worst travel experience is not necessarily that bad, because like I just cried in my car for a bit and then got over it and carried on. But like, yeah, I don't think I would want to be doing what you two did, which was complete hysteria, driving down a highway with cars spontaneously combusting.
Oh, it was terrible.
So this one is, I think, I'm not good with these questions, so I'll give this to Rob. But it says that for people who aren't perfect with timing, what advice do you have for people who want to come out but are scared to? It's a good question. I hate answering this question because I'm always like, I don't know your family or personal situation.
Yeah.
So I would never want to suggest that you come out and then put you in danger, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely scary. Like, the best way to do it is, if you are unsure how your family would react, to wait until you have the means to like
not be there
out if you have to. Yeah.
Because if you don't know your family and then there's a risk that they could throw you out, then that could be very serious. Or
Mhm.
worse, because there are lunatics in the world.
Yep. But if you are like basically bursting to tell someone and you're unsure of your family, usually like a very close friend, like someone you can trust to keep the secret if you tell them, is usually the best person to tell. Like someone would be favorable. Like sometimes even like if you have good friends, they still can be against LGBT people,
Mhm.
and it can turn out bad. But if you know that they would be okay with it, then someone like that would promise to keep your secret. It would be a good choice if you feel like you need someone to know. But just be careful, because it's unfortunately it's still not super great.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that you got to make sure that you're safe when you're making these decisions, because there are some not so great people out there, and you don't want to put yourself in a position where you might be unsafe. So
Yeah.
just specifically, you want to be careful, really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And like if you have friends that have a problem with you being LGBT, you don't want them as friends, basically. But unfortunately, sometimes you don't find out about that until after you tell them. But then it's like, okay, well, it feels bad, but then it's like, well, at least that person's not in my life anymore because they're super toxic. It's like, so if someone hates you just for being like something you can't control, that's not a friend you want.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 100%. This is an interesting one, because we can all answer this for different reasons, and that's, I think, why they asked it, because we all have our different reasons. Do people ever give you weird looks in public, and if so, how do you react? People give me weird looks in public, yeah. Sometimes they look like. Sometimes I think it's people trying to figure out if they know me. Like, do you know what I mean? Like young kids sometimes. Like maybe they just come across my video or something like that by accident, and they look at me. They might have it might have been one of my videos. Maybe I was in like a LD Shadow Lady video or something, of like another YouTuber who's much more popular than I am. And like they just they do that look where they look like they're squeezing a fart out. And it's like that facial expression of, do I know who you are? Like, I feel like I know who you are, but it's like, I don't know, not well enough to come and ask you, but like, do I know you? Like, I get that a lot. And then I only ever get like the like mean, like spirited looks if I speak, because without tooting my own horn, usually people can't tell I'm trans by looking at me. They usually only figure it out when I open my mouth because of my man voice. So when I talk, that's usually when I get weird looks. Normally only when I talk. Literally the other day, I was walking down the street, and I've only ever been heckled at in the street one time. Like I've only ever been like hate speech, should I say, one time in public. And the other day, I was literally walking down the street, and I was just talking to my mum, and these kids just like were looking at me weird for some reason. And as I talked to my mum, they shouted, it's a man!" And I was like, right, thanks. That's great for the self-esteem right there. Put that one on my calendar.
What about you, Rob? Do you get weird looks in public?
Only when I'm wearing strange hats, really.
Yeah, they look at Rob and they're like, he's outside?
They're like, I mean, typically people just like tend to disregard me. They're like, oh, it's a white guy. Meh.
There's a white man again.
Because obviously, like, there's no outward signs that I'm gay. So, I mean, unless I'm wearing, that's what, like, if I'm wearing my rainbow American flag shirt or something like that.
Only when he's walking around in his assless chaps.
Yeah. Or I have one of my funky hats on that people are like.
His t-shirt that says the entrance is this way. And the arrow's pointing at his ass.
But yeah, but no, I mean, I don't tend to get strange looks just because, I mean, I'm overweight, so I get looks like, he's overweight. But other than that.
Well, their ego's overweight, so it looks more to be them. What about you, Webby?
I only really get strange looks when I'm driving.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm that person where if I pull up next to somebody at a stoplight or something like that, I'm usually doing my own thing, and if there's a good song on the radio, I'll be singing to it, and I always look in the car next to me. I don't know why, but I don't know. Sometimes I get strange looks. I had this. I had this little old lady one time. I remember it was summertime, so I had my windows down and I could hear blaring rock music coming from this car. And I pulled up next to it, and it was she. I don't know, if I had to guess, she was like in her 90s. Like she was just little and old and so adorable. Uh, and then she turned and she looked at me, and then she gave me the rock and roll hand gesture and stuck her tongue out, and I started like I chuckled, and I waved, and then she just gave me the finger and drove off. And I was like, I love this little old lady. But yeah, that's the only time I get weird looks is like I'll look and see who's next to me at a stoplight or something, and people question why I'm looking over. It's like, well, I don't know. You looked over at me, so you did the same thing.
How Webby discovered he likes old women. Okay, so this is an interesting one because you guys. Okay, I'm going to be clear here, people listening. When I read this question out, these guys are going to immediately say that they don't know this experience because they're not popular enough. But it's a load of crap, and they just don't believe in themselves enough. But the question is, what made you... Sorry, what does it feel like to have so many eyes on you? And how do you deal with it?
I never have eyes on me.
That's not true.
It is true. Rob's the streamer here. I've streamed very rarely.
You stream in a charity live stream over the holidays that had, in total, an average of around 700 people watching it.
Yeah,
so I would disagree.
At the beginning and the end.
And that's when it had the most people there.
I mean,
so
fair.
You definitely had lots of eyes on you. People know you well enough now, even if it's by proxy of knowing someone else, that people know who you are. People acknowledge what you do. And
I don't know. Your chat was awfully confused.
Well,
they thought I was Rob.
To be fair, that was like 3 people who've been here ages that didn't understand that you were different people. It's like, what do you think they do? Just different voices each time? Like, I speak to the different ones. But the point is, either way, people know who you both are, whether that's from your own content or from, mine or whoever else. I guess what the person is saying is how does it feel to know so many people know who you are and are paying attention to what you do, and things that you say can obviously be taken in a varying manner of ways as a result of that.
I'll let Rob take this one first.
Well, I mean, I'm a Leo, so I love attention.
Right, well, that'll do it.
But yeah, I mean, I like it. I like it when people are watching me on stream. I used to do plays. I used to do murder mystery dinner plays all the time. When I lived in Connecticut, we would do 2 a year, and I loved being on stage. I loved doing all of it. Like sometimes we would do just regular comedies instead of murder mysteries. I loved every second of it. I mean, it's a little nervous at first, but then once you get going, it's just like, yeah. But I definitely enjoy it. I am not popular enough to really have people try to like bring me down out of jealousy, which I think you deal with a lot. So I really haven't gotten into that part yet. I'm sure it will bother me once if I get that popular. I'd probably be a little bothered by that, but right now it's just the more people that are watching, the better I feel. I like it. So
I used to like the attention. I used to enjoy knowing that there was a lot of people like knowing who I was, and it was cool. And I made it cool to have this job, and I felt really grateful to like all these people knowing me. But then sometimes now, it does feel a little bit scary because it feels like I've reached a point in my career that I could probably never go back to being a completely unknown average human again. If I quit YouTube today and never post another video again, yes, I would go back to being a quote normal everyday person, but like there would always be people who would be sat at their computer and they'd suddenly have that thought of that YouTuber that people used to know, or people might see you in public and be like, did you used to do something? Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like you reach a certain point, a certain size, where, because like I remember YouTubers from when I was a teenager that haven't done YouTube in years, but I still remember who they are, and sometimes I think about them, and sometimes I like Google them and see what they're up to now or something like that. You end up on those articles like washed up YouTubers and where they are now. I think that what I mean specifically to say is it's kind of weird to think that there's so many people that know who I am, and I probably will not ever be able to go back to being unknown if I ever wanted to be. Like if I ever wanted to just be a normal everyday person again, I probably couldn't. And that's weird to think of. The other thing that's weird to think of, and that I think about quite often, that it didn't used to bother me, but it does nowadays, is that literally anything I do at all, someone can take it out of context and use it against me in some way. So I have to think overly about every single thing that I say, do, think, act like on social media. It's not even about just what I tweet. I have to think carefully about what I like, because people can see it, who I follow, just how I act in general, whom I talk to, who my friends are, and how they act. That is where it gets weird. Because, like, for example, people will hold you on social media to the same standards they would hold somebody you know. Like, if somebody you know is doing something bad and they know you know them, they'll like act like you're like that too. Even if you didn't have a clue that they were that type of person and you'd never talk to them again because they've said something really awful, or they just have a different political view. So let's say I was really good friends with a Trump supporter, for example. I wouldn't be, but let's say I was. They would assume, therefore, that I am too, and would then treat me, well, like crap, because they'd assume that I have the same views as my friend, even if I am just trying to be an adult and letting them have their own views and me having mine, So I think, I'm definitely more conscious of it now. I'm definitely more conscious of how many people are paying attention to what I am doing in my daily life all the time. And it does freak me out a little bit, like, to think that there's so many people every single day watching me, and people who care enough to, like, there's people out there that want to know when I'm brushing my teeth, just like really strange sort of feeling. It's hard to explain. It almost feels like I can't go anywhere public without there always being a chance that there was somebody there that knows me. And I used to avoid certain places if I knew that people I went to school with and stuff were there, because I didn't want to see anybody I knew. But now I kind of feel like I live a life where there's always a chance that I'm going to go somewhere and someone knows who I am. And it's a bit weird, because, like, that's not to say that I'm tooting my own horn and pretending that I'm some huge inspirational YouTuber, because obviously I'm not. But because I know so many YouTubers that are and have been in their videos too, that then increases the amount of people that then know who you are. So yeah, it's kind of weird. It's a bit freaky to think about, but yeah. I guess, again, same as the first question, it's terrifying. Come on, Webby. Loads of people know who you are. So if you've not thought about this, it's time to start thinking about it.
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, see, like, I think it's neat, like, when I hop into, your guys' Twitch streams and stuff, that, I can say something or do something, and people will know that it's me,
Yeah.
and, I'll see my name a bunch. I think that's neat and all, but, like, I'm under the honest opinion, like, if I just fell off the face of the planet tomorrow, no one's ever gonna Google me. No one's ever gonna, like, no one's gonna ask a week from now, hey, where's Webby been?
I think that's a very drastically incorrect opinion, because there's certainly been situations where I've watched a YouTube video, for example, and someone was playing with their friend and loads of their videos, and suddenly their friend's just gone, and, like, I've Googled, like, whatever happened to this person's friend, just because I was curious where they were. I think that you're too hard on yourself. You know what you sound like? Vloggers, boyfriends. Like, when you get, like, a vlogger, or girlfriends, I guess, and they've got a partner who's not a vlogger, like, they've met either after or before they became a vlogger, usually after, and they've got a normal everyday job. So normally they try and like shy away and avoid the camera and stuff like that because they're not interested in being like social media personalities, but they obviously recognize that their partner is one. You sound like those where they like try and avoid and think that people don't know them, but really everybody knows who they are and is interested in what's going on. You know, like celebrities where people are like, no one knows celebrities' husbands or wives, and then meanwhile it's all over Wikipedia. Like everybody knows their like your private friends and stuff like that, and if you don't tell people who your like partner is, they will do everything they can to find out because they're creepy and weird. So I really don't think you're as unknown and uninfluential as you believe you are.
Well, I mean, if you go down like the influential route, like if I felt like anything that I said did hold weight with people listening, I mean, I guess that's kind of neat because, I mean, I'd like people to be just generally better people in life.
I think, and I say this with genuine honesty, okay, this is a good example. If I have to talk about something difficult where I'm being put on blast, let's say I'm being put on blast for something, and obviously if I go and talk about it by myself, like I defend myself alone, there will always be people that are like, well, it doesn't really matter that you're defending yourself, it's your own, it's your own problem, so they're not going to listen to you. But sometimes when you're defending yourself over something, you'll take someone with you for like moral support, won't you? But also additionally, because if you take the right person, it can also help the audience to see a different perspective. For example, if you were to, let's say, insert celebrity here goes out and responds to something and defends themselves, and they bring with them another big celebrity who's very well known and really popular and people really like, it's going to help their case a lot that they're friends and people are going to listen more because their favorite YouTuber's there too. So maybe they are right. Maybe it's not as bad. Because the thing with the internet is people will try and convince you all the time, won't they, that someone's terrible. But even if they don't have actual good reasons for it, like people are always telling you, well, I don't like them, so you shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like that kind of idea. So, if I was ever going to need to deal with something, alone, particularly, or something that made me feel down or I need to defend myself about something, if I had to take somebody into that, I would only ever want to take someone that I feel their opinions matter to people. Not just me. They also matter to others. And I would say that you and Rob are 100% the type of people that I literally did it with Rob. Would take people to like be there with me because I need that moral support. You are definitely the type of people that I would want to have there. I think that when you give your opinions on things or when you say things, you probably don't realize just how much people are actually listening to the things that you say and are interested. I mean, you have your listeners on this podcast that clearly care about what you're saying. I've read some of your reviews. People do care about what you say.
Yeah, all 6 of you guys out there.
Listen, Webby. If people were, there's people out there right now going to school that hate Booster Girl just because you said so, all right?
God, I hope so.
And that's influential in my opinion. So I just think, do you know what? I think you two especially, God, I could strangle you sometimes because I really feel that you two lack like confidence in yourselves to a point that makes me want to like punch you in the face.
Well,
in a nice, friendly way, like in a I love you kind of way. Like I want to punch you in an I love you way. You know,
okay.
Because you both hugely underestimate how much people appreciate and care about you every single day, and it drives me crazy. I could kill you respectfully.
We should have a Rob Appreciation Day.
Should have a Webby Appreciation Day.
Nope, they already tried and it failed. So now they need to try Rob Appreciation Day.
How did it fail?
Because it never went anywhere.
Because they never actually did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's very rude. How dare you?
So now we should try the Rob Appreciation Day and see if it gets traction.
Webby in particular's lack of faith in himself makes me like want to stamp on his head.
Well,
So, yeah.
next question. Moving on from this violence talk.
My friend Lucy asks, why do you all smell of toots?
Everybody poops. I don't know.
I mean, shower though, don't you? So that you don't smell of toots.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I'd have to shower every like 5 minutes.
Why? Do you toot a lot?
Yeah.
Right. I just don't feel like I really needed to know. This has got weird, hasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Blame Lucy.
Moving on.
Way to go, Lucy.
How do I get richer? All right. Wrong answers only, guys. Good.
Wrong answers only. How do I get
Well-
rich quick?
None of us know the right answers.
Get rich quick, huh? Play the Powerball, the lottery. Maybe luck will be on your side.
Rob a bank.
Well, that's not a wrong answer.
5E.
You would get rich quick.
5e. Yeah.
What does that mean? 5e.
You're supposed to say that after you say something like. It's just because it's a joke about Dungeons and Dragons because you look up weird stuff and like it's like the FBI is watching you type in how fast would a body dissolve in acid, and then they're like what, and then you write 5e for 5th edition D&D, and they're like oh okay. So anytime you say something shady,
the nerds are looking
you add
shit up
5e to
again.
Oh, dear.
Man, I don't know. Like, you could try to blackmail rich people, but then you run the risk of them like hiring people to take you out. I watch a lot of movies. Okay.
Yeah, you can tell. I was about to say this sounds like a bit of a crime drama. I'm not quite sure that that's an effective way to become rich, but I did say wrong answers only, I suppose.
Start a podcast. I can't keep the money off of me. It just attaches to me constantly.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay,
That's a real
so-
tough question though to try to answer.
Yeah, I know. I have no
Honestly.
idea. Just
Lots of
lay
hard
in your
work.
bed and hope. Okay, so next up we have. Someone said Spotify Wrapped reveal, but I don't think we can do that because I don't think Webby will have one.
Nope.
Well, Webby, you could tell us verbally who your most listened to singer would be. So I imagine you listen to so little music, you probably know.
I actually listen to a lot of music. I'll let you guys answer, and then I'll come up with one by the time you guys get to me. I can look on my YouTube.
Mine's Taylor Swift. Everybody probably knows that. I've listened to her the most, and my most listened to songs are all hers too. So unsurprising, I should imagine. Rob?
Rab.
Mine was mostly Encanto and Frozen songs, if I remember correctly.
I mean, respectable. My third was Encanto.
Spotify. Does it still tell you? Because I don't remember.
I think only on the mobile app, but it might. Webby, did you figure it out?
Yeah, I'd have to say my. Man, it's a toss up between two, but I'd have to probably say Lindsey Sterling is probably my top listened to musical artist.
Fair enough. Can't complain. Also, while Rob is finding out if he's looking,
Yeah, I'm like,
I think that my second was Conan Gray, and I think my third was the Olivia Rodrigo maybe, and then the Encanto ensemble. I think. Rob's just frantically going through his phone right now. He's like, I know it's here.
My next two would probably be AC/DC and Celtic women.
Celtic women.
Yeah. It's very relaxing music.
Christina Perri was my number one.
I love Christina Perri.
And then it was Encanto songs, and then it was Panic at the Disco, and then Florence and the Machine.
Oh, I love Florence and the Machine too. Some good artists. Other Webbies haven't really heard most of them. Okay, so why did you start a podcast?
Honestly, boredom. It was a mix between boredom and I wanted essentially a platform where I could just go and put something out for people to listen to if they chose to, and I could just talk and give my opinions on stuff and just talk about whatever I wanted, essentially.
Right.
You know, I knew going into Simply Unprofessional, even back when it was Tavern Talk, it was going to be a podcast that was going to be just people sitting down and having conversations. It wasn't going to be scripted or anything, and I wasn't going to edit it unless, again, somebody specifically asked me to edit something out. Then I would go back and edit it out. Otherwise, I don't know. Like, I think it's more personal with no editing. You know, you get people's raw reactions to things. You know, I don't know.
I understand. I think it's nice that you wanted to provide something for people to listen to, but also have a way to just express your random garbles, I suppose.
Yeah.
Rob, how come you wanted to be on a podcast? I suppose is the better question for you.
I don't know. I mean, it basically is like having a conversation with my friends, but then other people get to hear it. So like you said, I wanted to share my opinions on the things that they were talking about. So I was like, you know what? I'll join you.
Yeah, I think I just always I love the idea of just having something where you're just chatting, not have to put any makeup on, get to do random stuff, you know. I thought it was just a fun sort of vibe, and that's why I decided I wanted to be involved in them. And I've enjoyed it so far. I've enjoyed getting to do it, so you know, can't complain. Okay, so what is some good advice for a future streamer, and what things should one get?
Don't get discouraged early on when you don't have a lot of viewers.
Yeah. Good example of that of another piece of advice would be to follow your own advice, Webby.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did get very discouraged, which is why I stopped streaming for so long. I have been considering getting back into it, and you know, I am going to need help at some point setting things up and figuring out a schedule. I don't. There's a lot that goes into it that I just don't understand. Like, it's not as easy as just, oh, I'm bored at 3 a.m. Let's just start streaming a game.
Well, it is. It is. You just don't want to.
I mean, it's really not though, because like, depending on what you're playing, like everybody has like certain demographics that they aim towards, you know, and like if I'm streaming at 3 a.m. Eastern time,
Yeah.
most people on the East Coast are going to be sleeping at 3 a.m. So no one's going to be watching. You know what I mean? So I'm by just doing it. Yeah, I'm at least getting out there and I'm doing it. But like, if I chose that as like a normal time slot, I'm cutting so much out by making it where certain people just can't make it to the stream, you know? So, and then
I
I run
mean,
into the issue. Another reason I talk myself out of it all the time is because it's like, okay, well, I mean, I could try to stream during these times that Rob usually streams, but on these days instead, and then Tamara will be streaming. It's like I don't want to compete with her, you know?
I think sometimes you have to decide what you're doing it for. If you're doing it because you want to be successful, then yeah, you need to think about all these things about what time you stream, when you stream, where you stream, blah blah blah, what you use. But if you're doing it just for fun, just to have fun and enjoy yourself and as a hobby and just see out what happens with it, I feel like you shouldn't necessarily take it quite so seriously and just enjoy yourself. I think, like I said, it depends on what you're aiming for. Though, obviously, if you want it to be a successful business, and you got to treat it like one, but if you want it to just be something that you do for fun with your friends and have a laugh and enjoy yourself, I don't think it matters when you stream or how you stream, as long as you just stream. Because if you're never live, you can't benefit in any way at all.
That's true.
Yeah.
And there's always audiences in other countries that can watch.
Yeah,
Too.
like I was gonna say, if you're streaming at 3 a.m. on the East Coast, it's only midnight on the West Coast, and it's 8 a.m. in London, and in Australia, it's like the middle of the day, and all those are English-speaking countries. And not to mention that there's some people in non-English-speaking countries that do still watch English-speaking streamers. So,
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think it's one of those things where classically, just again, not being too hard on yourself, trying not to be discouraged, and just doing it, just trying, because there's no way you'll know until you try, right? So it's just kind of one of those things. The last question was, I closed it. Oh, here we are. If you had a child, what would you name it?
hey you.
Hey you. Awesome. Awesome name.
I actually had names picked out for my kids when I was married. If it was a boy, it was going to be Alexander, and if it was a girl, it was going to be Krista.
Wow. I've always struggled with boys' names, but I've always had thoughts about what I would call a girl. I always wanted to call my daughter like Peyton, or I like Marigold, and I like Mirabelle, and I like Maga. That's a nice name too. But Peyton probably would be the one that I would choose to go for if I had to pick one. Webby?
Hold, please.
It's like, quick, Google girls' names and boys' names. Quick.
No, so I don't know. Like I put a lot of thought into this, like a long time ago. And without getting into too many specifics, for boys' names, I've always liked the name Benjamin.
Mhm.
I know my mom would be thrilled if I had a boy and named him Benjamin. I mean, boys' names. I'm really not picky as far as boys' names, as far as that goes. Like,
Okay.
I feel like once you have the child and you see the child, sometimes it just might click. Like you might just look and be like, you know what, this is, like like how I was named. My nurse looked at me and was like, this is a Patrick, and my parents
Hey, it's Patrick.
named me Patrick. As far as girls' names, I mean, I've always liked the kind of, I don't want to say oddball names, but like I like the name Willow.
How is Willow an oddball name?
You don't meet too many people named Willow.
There's a celebrity daughter named Willow.
Oh well, but I mean, if you think about when you went to school, how many Willows did you know growing up?
Good point.
I like the name Hope. I liked Peyton when you said Peyton.
Hey, get your own names.
Well, sorry, I'm bleaching off of yours. So.
How dare you? That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be easier to name names that I wouldn't want to name my kids, but
It's a lot more names.
well, it's just easier though because it's like, oh well, I've had a bad experience in my life with Craig, so I don't want to name my son Craig.
Oh my god, I used to teach a girl that had a specific name, and I can't say it because you're not supposed to, but God, I would never call her that ever.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like you have a bad experience, and it's like, well, that name sticks with you. Like, okay, here's another somewhat oddball name, depending, but I had a middle school bully, and his name was Angus. I would never name my son Angus.
God.
Ever.
What an awful name.
Yeah.
Sorry if anyone watching this is called Angus. But it's not very nice. I don't like that name.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I get it. Webby hates everybody. So
I mean, that is the persona I go for. I am the angry panda.
He likes to pretend that he hates everybody. That's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. So... No, I understand that. I think it's a complicated one. It's hard when you're not about to have kids. When you're going to have kids, then it's different because you kind of have to think about it. But if you're not in the process of having a child, a lot of people don't start thinking about kids' names until pregnancy or it's actually going to happen. They're actually going to have a child soon. Then they're like, oh, better think of some names. And that's how you end up with kids called Robert.
He's letting Matilda out right now, so he didn't hear that.
Well, we can pretend. But no, yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. I think thinking of names is quite hard sometimes. So...
Well, again, I think some of it is just like once you set eyes on the kid, sometimes you just have that feeling like, one particular name that might have been rattling around in your brain just clicks. And
people say that, like, you look like a this, or you look like a that. I think that is such a load of crap.
I don't think so.
I think it is. I think it's a load of rubbish. A load of old crapperoni.
You know what I would never name my son? John.
What? Okay, fair enough.
And Rob,
now you can title this video, "Don't Name Your Children John."
I was gonna say one thing I would never name my child is Robert. Like, I don't understand the tradition of people naming children after themselves. It's like, because then there's two people with the same name in a small household. Like, every time my mom would call Robert, I would like, are you talking to me or are you talking to Dad? Like, why? It just seems silly to me, and it's like people putting like, oh, I'm putting all my hopes in you that you were better than I was and more successful. It's like, that's a lot of freaking crap to put on a child.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
I mean, also, like, do you have the same exact name, like middle name and everything as your dad?
No, we have different middle names, so I didn't have to be Junior.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I know, like, my cousin has the same name as his father, but we always just called him Junior.
Yeah, no, they purposely changed my middle name so I wouldn't have to be Robert Jr., but still, it's like, why even name, like, give me my own unique name. It's like, oh, someone already in the family already has your name now. It's your dad. Cool. Awesome. I don't get to be unique in any way.
You know what? I know several Roberts. I'll just start calling you Bobby.
No, Bobby's all right. I hate Bob. But and when I got married, my wife's father was also Robert, and her brother was also Robert. So there were freaking 4 Roberts. Is that
the only name that they know down in Connecticut?
I have no idea.
They look at gals and they're like, "You're gonna have this name," and everybody's got the same one. Then they look at boys and they're like, "Robert."
The hospital went around that time and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna give you a discount on your bill if you name your kid Robert."
Discount on your Roberts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh
it. She
my
used to call
God.
me Bert because her brother was Bobby, her dad was Bob, my dad was Robert, and she called me Bert.
Ugh.
Oh my God, that hurts my head. I think we'll just go back to Edquist.
Yeah. Yeah, that's everywhere I've freaking gone too. There's always been another Robert, like Goose.
Yep.
So they called me
Jesus.
Edquist,
Yeah, I
even
know.
though they
That's why
called
we
him
called
Goose.
it. Yeah, we called you Edquist for the longest time. I mean,
Ah,
now I
But
just
the
call you
funny thing
Rob.
is, you didn't even call him
But you
Robert.
didn't call
Robert.
him
You called
Robert,
him
yeah.
Goose.
I
You
know.
called him Goose. It didn't make any sense.
I know.
I
But in
have
my
to
brain,
say-
I feel like if I had said, "Hey, Rob" or Robert, then it would get mixed up. So I would just call him Goose and you Edquist.
This is one very useful thing about my name. It's very rare that I find somebody else in a group of something that I'm involved in that has the same name as me.
Well, I guess we have to go find another B, huh?
Oh, there are some. I was looking through Reddit, and I was just like, I wonder if there's, because you talked about the Reddit thing, and I couldn't find it, by the way, so it seems to be gone. But there were people talking about you on the Royal High thing, and people with the name B were like, they're like, stop yelling at me for not being BeaPlays. They're like, my name is B. I can call myself B if I want to. It just doesn't mean I'm BeaPlays. They're like, people like say when I tell people I'm not BeaPlays, they say I'm trying to fake and I'm fake and I'm trying to pretend to be her. It's like, my name is just B.
Now, on the topic of names, have either of you ever had nicknames throughout the years that stuck? That like
Yes.
for like at least years, not
Yeah,
just like, oh,
Edquist.
this month you're this nickname.
I have had nicknames that have stuck for a long time, but they were all like before transitioning, and therefore they're all like either masculine or attached to that period of time in my life. So I prefer that people don't use them.
Gotcha.
Unless you count nicknaming someone a shortened version of their name, in which case you all use it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of a shortened version.
My other friends, and Iris does it sometimes, call me Trissy instead of B. So, because Triss is a shortened version of my name too.
Gotcha. What about you, Rob?
Well, there was Bert,
Ugh.
and then Edquist, obviously. There are two, when in middle school, people used to call me Coke. Because I had huge, thick glasses, because they didn't have the thinning lens technology back then, so my glasses were so they called me Coke Bottle, and then that just got shortened to Coke. And then
See, I wonder why they went with Coke instead of Mr. Magoo.
I don't know. It might have been too early for Mr. Magoo, but anyway.
Maybe.
Well, because Mr. Magoo didn't wear glasses, that was his problem.
No, yeah, but when he did have glasses, they were like a foot thick.
But anyway, then my friends, sometimes when we were teenagers, they used to call me Tumbleweed all the time because
You always fell down and rolled around.
no, because I would always tell jokes, and they knew that's one of the reasons. Because like, oh, you're so funny. It's because my friends tormented me. It made me funnier. Because I used to just tell constant jokes, and sometimes my friends would just be like, no.
No.
And then there was this episode of The Simpsons where Homer told a stupid joke, and nothing happens, and like the wind blows and a tumbleweed goes by. So then they started calling me Tumbleweed whenever I told a joke that wasn't funny, and then they started doing it when I told jokes that were funny, just to annoy me because they knew it bothered me
They
so
sound
much.
like wonderful friends, Rob.
Oh yeah. Nah, they're assholes.
Evidently. I think it's I don't know, it's complicated because nicknames are weird ones because some people get given nicknames that they don't even like, and then you're just sort of stuck with it and it sort of grows. My biggest one was when I first started YouTube. My username back then, similar to how this happens a lot in the gaming communities, people called me my username instead of my actual name. for a long time, and I hated it, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one that I had for a while that I didn't like. What about you, Webby? Nicknames other than Webby?
Oh man, yeah. My whole life has just been an ongoing, rotating door of nicknames. Very, very seldomly do I ever hear my actual name get called. Sometimes my buddy Ross will call me Pat, but my mom always preferred my friends called me Patrick. But then I don't know, so the people just start shortening my name. Like for a while they just called me Webster, and then it was Webby. I got one buddy of mine who I worked at a machine shop with who just calls me Webbs. All through all 4 years of high school, I was known by pretty much everybody as Bubba. I even had at my work at the time, I had one employee of the month, and they engraved Bubba into the employee of the month. My manager didn't even know my name. I was like, "Really? You sign my checks?" You know. Yeah, and then my mom and my dad and my two eldest sisters all call me Patch. That's kind of like my shortened family nickname.
Right.
My mom, when she gets mad, will call me Patrick Michael. So that's when I hear that, it's like, okay, what'd I do? Or what didn't I do? So, yeah. I get nervous when I hear my first and middle name. So, but yeah, other than that, I mean, I've always just gone by Nick. I'm the guy where it's like you could literally like Rob naming his kid "Hey you." You could literally just yell "Hey you," and I'll probably turn around to look. The most confusing time, although for some reason it worked, was when I worked at the oil warehouse. Everyone in the warehouse called each other Chuck. Didn't matter what you were doing or who you were, everyone was Chuck. And when you yelled Chuck, meaning for like a very specific person, that person usually understood. And like
Right.
you'd hear Chuck being yelled all around, but you're like, oh, they're not talking to me. They're not talking to me. I don't. It was so surreal. I like looking back on it. I was like, how did that not get super confusing to everybody? So.
Yeah. I just prefer people to use my name. It's just easier. I don't like using nicknames for other people much either. I prefer to just give people names.
Yeah. So you said that was the last question?
It was indeed.
Well, we got through all the questions then. And we're just over an hour, so we can probably end the episode unless there's anything else that you guys want to talk about.
Let's talk about how awesome I am. No, I'm just kidding.
All
I'm not
right.
going to talk about how awesome I am.
Let's do it.
We'll save that for a whole episode because we're going to need more than 10 minutes for that.
Oh, all right.
So we'll save that for later.
Rob, do we have a science corner?
You'd think. I did read something.
I don't know if y'all can hear Tilly barking up a storm in the background.
I hear nothing.
That's good. Let's see if I can find some life advice.
I love how everybody's just like flailing around on like science con and life advice.
Oh, I remember what it was about. It was that the Y chromosome is slowly disappearing.
What?
Huh?
So you know how in humans, if you get 2 X chromosomes, it develops you as a female at birth, and if you have an X and Y, it develops you as a male. Apparently, the X chromosome and the Y chromosome used to have the same amount of genetic sequences in them, but the Y chromosome has been shrinking like over time, so that it almost I think it only has like 60 now, where the X chromosome has like 600. So eventually, I mean, I say eventually, but it's like a couple thousand years from now, it'll just be gone.
How will we have men?
Well, that's the problem. They're not sure. They're worried that could end the human race eventually, but it's a couple 100,000 years, so we have time to look into it. But they did talk about how there are some species of mammals that don't have a Y chromosome anymore, and they still can differentiate between male and female, and they're trying to figure out how, so just in case it becomes a problem. But it won't be a problem for a long, long time. All of us will be dead, so.
Well, don't care then. I'll be long gone. Sorry, everyone. Have fun.
I'm gonna live forever.
You do that.
Don't know how.
If that's what makes you happy, then that's fine.
Plus, you've already got a Y chromosome, so you'll be fine.
Yeah. So here's an old saying that is good for life advice. So the early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese.
I get it.
Everybody. Shout out to Vegan Teacher.
The first one gets killed by the trap.
Yeah.
That took way too long for me to process that. That's good advice. I like it.
Yeah, that's all I got for life advice. Shout out to Vegan Teacher. You are insane.
Please be on the podcast.
I would love to get her on my podcast. I want her to educate me on all the things that I'm eating that are wrong, which is literally everything, probably.
Yep.
And then I can try to do my best to educate her on just how good bacon really is.
Oof, all the vegan listeners right now tuning out. Bye, Webby.
Well, listen. All right. Well, with that being said, B, where can people find you on the internet or on, streaming and stuff?
BeaPlays, the search for it.
And Rob, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Confessor_X and on Twitch at twitch.tv/ConfessorX.
And as always, you guys can follow me on Twitter at JaxForestWalker, all one word, and on Twitch, sometimes at DM Webby. I pop into their chats. I'm sure B will be pushing me to stream soon on my own channel for once. And with that being said, thank you for listening. We love you. And until next week, fuck Booster Gold.
Fuck Booster Gold.
Bye.
Bye.
We can talk during the outro. That's fine.
It's tradition to talk during the outro.
Why didn't you talk during the outro? I don't get it.
I don't know. We just started talking during the outro. I just don't like people talking during the intro because it throws everything off. Dun, dun.
Once you talk through the intro, it ruins everything.
It does.
It's unreturnable.